Next item.
Special reports, item A, policy update. Mr. Brian Wiston.
I'd ask Dr. Maleko, Director of HR, to come forward. The board member, last board meeting at the college kind of gave you an overview, and Glenn will just give you a quick another overview. As you know, the state required us to do this by law, so with that said, I think we have done something that many districts will follow and something we can be very proud of. So, Dr. Maleko.
Thank you, Mr. Wiston. Good evening, President Adams, members of the Board of Education. Thank you for giving me the time to present on this topic today. Legislation was passed in 2011 that now requires us to create policies on layoff, recall, and placement for both teachers and administrators. And so that's what we're asking you to do this evening. We have been working on these policies since about December, been doing a lot of work. There has not been a lot of references from other districts because it's fairly new. So these are new, cutting-edge, innovative things that we are working on to make it beneficial for our students. The DFT and ADSA leadership was giving an opportunity to provide input into the process, which is required by state legislation, and it's just the way we operate and do business in the district. The policies were also reviewed by our legal attorney, and on the 25th of April, the Board Policy Committee met to review the policies and have a discussion. The entire board, I know you had a discussion at the April 29th board meeting as well. As I mentioned, we believe our model is on the cutting edge, and it's really good for the students here and for the educational model in the district. And you do have a handout of this PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that when it first came up. We're asking you to approve 4 policies and guidelines, and the policies involve layoff and recall of teachers, layoff and recall of administrators, and then we have placement of administrators and placement of teachers. So we listed those numbers. The guideline numbers are in accordance with the policy number. I'm just going to highlight the DFT layoff and recall process. It's basically a formula now. And it starts with evaluation ratings. State law does require those individuals rated ineffective to be laid off first, and that's mandated, and that's across the state of Michigan. So we're going to look at the ratings first. Then we look at implementation of individuals that are on a development plan potentially that need improvement. We're going to look at factors like suspension, attendance that comes into play, attendance over a 2-year period, and then another category which is attendance at professional development. We're looking at discipline, and then we do have seniority there as a 8th tiebreaker. Now, placement issues which involve transfers, teachers will still be able to apply for transfers, but the seniority will no longer be a factor. It really will be based on there'd be a review of resumes, and then they would have to interview either before the administrators or potential committee at the school level. So it would be, all teachers would have the ability to apply for the transfers, but then it would be based on performance, whether or not they receive the position. And the superintendent basically will have the right, as he does currently, even under the contract, to realign staff throughout the district. So we wanted to keep that in place. There are a couple things I want to highlight here as well. Employees that are rated ineffective will not have recall rights. So that's something I just wanted to point out. And then there's also summer school placement, which also has performance and attendance as a factor for placement of teachers in the summer school. Then we also have our administrator policy. To be honest, the DFT policies that we're putting in place for teachers are on cutting edge, and they're fairly new, and I think other districts may want to look at what we're doing. The ADSA administrator policies, really we took a lot of the language out of the contract that was already there, because it does allow for a lot of flexibility between the board and the superintendent for placement and hiring administrators.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Maleko.